Welcome to Passionate and Practical, the art of dreaming, doing, and serving. Today, I'm with Jessica Stollings, and she is a wonderful influencer. She is so joyful, and I have to give a shout out to my friend James Chapman, who introduced us a few years ago and just knew that the two of us were supposed to connect. Jess is an author, she's a speaker, and she is the founder of ReGenerations, which is an organization that we'll be learning more about in just a little bit. But I just love her heart for people, for connection, and for communication, quite frankly. And so, Jess, welcome to the show. I'm so glad to have you on here.
Oh, hi, Lexi. Such an honor to be with you today. Man, I'm so excited to talk with you, and I'm also so thankful for our mutual friend James for connecting us. You know, one of the greatest compliments I received was, man, you've got to meet Lexi. You all remind me a lot of each other. So that's a very high compliment, and I'm thrilled to be with you today.
Oh, thanks, Jess. Ditto to you. I just see what you're doing, and I am just so thankful to know you and just to see how bright your light is shining in this world. And that's why I have you on the show, because you serve others so well. You're a big dreamer, you're a big doer, and you serve. And so, why are you so passionate about intergenerational relationships?
Oh, you know, Lexi, I'm surprised to know that not everyone gets this excited about intergenerational communication strategies, right? What a common thing to be thinking about all the time. You know, many passions in my life, Lexi, have birthed out of pain points, and this one is definitely one of them. Are you a planner, perchance?
Yes.
Okay. Let me just ask and go one step deeper. Do you ever add things to your to-do list just so you can check them off?
Absolutely.
Okay, we're going to get along really well. I am one of those girls. So I'm telling you, in college, I did everything I could on the list to prepare for my future, from volleyball and internships and extracurricular activities and grades, and was really mapping out this plan for my life. I had it all envisioned from the house and the picket fence and the job and the master's degree and the future husband and all of these things. And man, Lexi, what I can tell you is that life after college looked anything but like that picture that I painted. I found tremendous gaps between my expectations and my realities, and I wasn't quite sure what to do with them. I noticed a lot of my 20-something friends were also struggling with a lot of the same tendencies and questions. Although we were so blessed, we were still really struggling in life, but maybe looking online like we weren't. So I became really curious about this 20-something demographic. Started hosting focus groups with anyone who would talk with me. I'm telling you, some baking brownies or having a Starbucks gift card can get you a long way in just talking and opening up communication lines with young people.
That's amazing.
And I'm telling you, I had this little Debbie brownie box, like kits of them ready to go. And it's amazing. People want to talk, you know, they want to share their stories. And so I started seeing some trends in the 20-something demographic that I was living out and walking out. At the same time, I started my first hashtag adulting job in radio news reporting, and, you know, being in the news environment and working with many people in their 60s and in even their 50s, man, the communication style was very much based on the military chain of command. So here's what we're going to do now, do it or we'll cut you. And I was not used to being cut. And so Lexi, I cried on my first job. And I'm thinking, what is going on here? And I started to really notice that there were a lot of trends in the 20-somethings based on the times and the context, the environment they grew up in. And wow, same for all generations. And what I started noticing was that, oh my goodness, you know, depending on what generation we grew up in, that can impact the way that we see the world, what we expect in the workplace and how we communicate with one another. Without the right lens of understanding, those expectations can clash and cause unnecessary conflict and frustration. And so I started thinking about this all the time, and I would call my mentor and talk to her about it weekly. And she said, okay, I love listening to you, Jessica. So we can keep talking about this every week, or you could do something about it.
Wow.
And so she sent me a gift card, Lexi, $100 gift card to Starbucks. I was living in Colorado Springs at the time. I went up to this Briargate Starbucks, and the contingency was that I would utilize that to give 1 hour a week to figure out what this thing is. Because I didn't know, is this a book? Is this research? Is it speaking? I don't even know what I'm trying to figure out. And she said, just start. So it started with 1 hour, and then 2, and then 3, and then the brownie box focus groups. And then with time, I started packaging and sharing what I was learning. And it has now been my joy to do that full time, to help different generations understand one another so that they can speak the same language and bring their diverse perspectives together, share knowledge and wisdom and life experiences. So ultimately, we can improve our relationships, our communities, our workplace, and our world.
Oh, that is so awesome. And I just love to, when I tell people about you and I explain you to people, I'm like, she's doing this really, really cool and necessary work around bridging the gap between intergenerational kind of confusion sometimes. And I have a mentor that is 74. And so we've got nearly 50 years between us. And she was on the show just a few weeks back. And it's just so neat to learn from her and to gain wisdom from her. And I've seen a lot of people my age just not valuing that. And so tell us a little bit more about your business. What are some of the tangible takeaways from people that have gone through an experience where you've spoken or you've done workshops, or and who are these people and companies that are hiring you, and what is their takeaway and experience like?
Yeah, you bet. Wonderful question. Because, in many ways, Lexi, I'm solving a problem that a lot of people don't even know exists. So typically by the time someone gets to me, they think, Houston, we think we have a generational problem here. And so I have a set of questions that I ask to really understand, to see if I can help them. So kind of what's happening out there, Lexi. I primarily serve businesses, institutions of all types, ranging from kind of business to government and education, the faith-based sector. Regardless of the focus, many of them are having very similar problems. So we're seeing that age diversity or generational diversity is the number one diversity issue in America right now, where we're having challenges. We're seeing millennial turnover cost $30.5 billion annually.
Wow.
We're seeing 12% of the workplace for 1 in 3 people that's being lost due to chronic unaddressed generational issues. And only 20% of companies have a plan to manage, more or less optimize these dynamics. So half of the story is a story of raising awareness to mitigate conflict, to increase productivity, to help us get along better, to form cohesive teams. The other half, where I love to get with clients, is to not just say, okay, let's learn each other and try and have these decent working relationships. Oh my goodness, that's just the beginning. Let's learn how we can actually bring our differences together, because, by the way, they're not bad or wrong. They're just different. It can actually make us stronger. So how do we put these pieces together to build causes and ideas that are going to flourish and endure? And so typically I work a lot with human resources, diversity and inclusion groups, leaders of all types of industries and business sectors. And I go in and do from keynote speaking to training, very customized towards the needs. And so I've taken about a decade worth of studies that are ever changing and really give us clues to trends that are important for today as well as for tomorrow, and help them kind of navigate these issues. And so it is so much fun. Underwriting all I do, can I geek out for just 2 seconds?
Absolutely.
Okay, maybe 2 minutes. No, but I'll rein it in, my excitement. But behind all I do is kind of this theory. It's called generational theory, right? At a high level, Lexi, it says, hey, each generation kind of overcompensates from perceived lacks when they were growing up. And so we get caught in these same 4 cycles that keep repeating themselves throughout history, giving us a lens of where we've been and to begin to anticipate where things may be going. So let's say you get a really optimistic generation, sky's the limit. Have you seen the Lego movie?
Yes, I love it.
Yeah, right? This is the everything is awesome generation. So after that, you typically see, dude, everything is not awesome. It's not all butterflies and roses out there. It's tough. So you often see very a skeptical, boundary-driven generation emerge. After that, we typically see a peacemaking generation who can reconcile that life is both beautiful and broken, and we can make peace with that tension. After that, we typically see with that solid foundation, a group of builders who come in and they build something really cool and it's pretty awesome, right? So then we're back to everything is awesome, not that awesome. Oh, it's okay. Let's try something new.
Wow.
And so these cycles keep repeating. What's fascinating about where we are today is we're sitting in the middle of what's called a fourth turning. In the generational story, it's an epic time. It only comes every 80 years. It's a time where many of our traditional models and modes of communication, our systems, the way we organize and form in society begin to deconstruct, and we begin to rebuild or regenerate, right, from the ground up. In the middle of this, as you can imagine, is great tension, because many of the things that are changing, a lot of our elders have worked very hard to build. So we've got to ask, how can we honor them? How can we capture their legacy and their stories and their knowledge, and pass it down to new generations in ways they can hear and understand? Likewise, how do we equip and empower the rising generation for success? Because in the middle of all this, we have the opportunity to ask, what are we going to build? How can it be better? And how on earth can we do it together? And that's what I'm about, is coming into that point of tension to help us understand one another, speak the same language, bring our differences together, create culture, systems, and strategy where all generations can thrive, so that we can get better and stronger with each new generation.
Girl, you are a genius.
Oh no, it's just so much fun. What drives me is, a part of my work is I'm just a generational translator. I just help translate. But I think the bigger part is it's a paradigm shift.
Right.
Just giving people a new lens to try on and to see. It's not about stereotyping or saying, if you are this generation, you have these 3 to 5 qualities. Not at all. This is simply one lens among many that could give us clues to better understand and connect. It's kind of like trees in a forest, right? We know that each tree is totally different, and they grew up in similar soil. They had similar amounts of sunlight, similar amounts of rainfall. So we could maybe take away some high-level clues about these trees. And that's all we do when we look at generations. We look at the social and cultural influences that have impacted them as they're coming of age, and what clues that can give us as to how they want to relate and engage and come in. And so the best way to do that is always to ask and not assume, but to open up discussion. So in workshops, we do a lot of story sharing. What was life like when you were growing up? What were some of the defining moments? What technology did you use? What did you do for fun? What were the cool things? And it's amazing what happens, Lexi, when we take time, number one, to remember, because we live such busy lives. So often we forget to remember the moments, the people, the memories that have shaped us. Likewise, to start to listen more and understand that there are real whys behind the reasons that people come in and maybe present themselves or behave in a certain way, and understanding and tapping into those whys can help make us better and stronger.
It's phenomenal. And I was going to ask, how hard is it to pitch this to companies as a value added kind of proposition? And if I didn't know the answer before, now I know from the past 5 minutes. It's phenomenal. It's the research is there, the history is there, your expertise is there, and then also just your personality. Of course, anyone that meets you wants to hire you. And there's probably before people are educated on knowing exactly what it is that you do, I'm really big into kind of like team building and things like that. And I started a retreat company, which was to help women with like self-confidence and sisterhood and things like that. And I was kind of thinking maybe this is on the same level, except for with kind of your specific target, and it's so much deeper than that. And I just am so blown away by your knowledge and your the depth that you bring to the table with this, because it is so needed. And like you said, it's costing companies billions of dollars, and it's just so fun to hear you talk so confidently about something that you're so passionate about. And that's exactly what this show is about. It's about how are you using your gifts, skills, and talents to serve others and serve the kingdom of God. So you are one joyful person, and that's one of the things that I love most about you. You've faced many trials in life, but you always get right back up and you put on a cute outfit and some lipstick and you get it, girl. And,
yeah, girl.
and
That's
so
part of the rise, right? You
yes,
have to do it with red lips, sister.
yes. So you're incredibly joyful. Where does that come from?
Oh, goodness. What a wonderful question. I think you hit on a part about me. I think part of where that joy comes is I'm going to take it right back to pain. When I look back on my life and I think about some of the major milestones that have led me to places of joy, they've always started with a challenge. I think back when I was a little girl, I remember my family had just moved and we were in this new school system, and inside I'm very joy filled, but I remember in third grade, everyone was talking about how mean and stuck up I was. And I mean, that just killed my heart. I'm like, why did they think that? And I came home and I was telling my mom about it. And she said, Jessica, I've noticed that when you're just kind of relaxed, your face kind of, your lips turn down a little bit. So it could look like you're frowning. And she said, and you're a thinker. So when you think, you kind of, you kind of focus in and you squint your eyes. And so you put that with a frown, and that could look like maybe you're not happy. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I had no clue. And so she said, try smiling. Just try it, see what happens. I'm telling you, all of a sudden I went from like no friends to a lot of friends. And now my nickname is Smiles, because that nonverbal was not representative of who I was on the inside.
Wow.
I just needed to tweak it a little bit. And that was a game changer for me. Also in childhood, I was a lot of things that were not cool at the time. I was quite a bit overweight. I had a lot of freckles, pretty dark freckles, and I had a major lisp. And so you put those three together in elementary school and middle school, and that's kind of a tough set to have. And so I was made fun of a ton. I mean, I remember going into dance class and because I love dancing, I had already nicknamed myself like Jazzy Jess. So I was like, jazz hands were my jam. So I just had all of this excitement to let out, but I wasn't aware that people saw me that way until one day I go into dance class, and I'll never forget. The girls did not see me come in, but they said, gosh, I hope we don't have Jessica on our dance team. She'll make us look bad because she's so overweight. Oh. They used another word that I won't use that word ever. But so I look at that, I look at going to speech class. So I know what it's like to not feel like you fit, or that you're not chosen for a team. I know what it feels like to be in a class that's different than everybody else, and to kind of, be separated from the group, and to go learn how to speak out your lisp. Now, as God would have it, my first job was radio news reporting. I speak for a living now. And for so many years, I wanted to hide from people. And now I'm out in front of people all the time. And so I think, without that experience in childhood, would I have the vision that I do today for people? I see people, Lexi. I love people. I know what it feels like to maybe feel like you don't fit, or that you're not chosen. I'm very sensitive to that. And I try to see that in others, and to try and include them. So, I mean, story after story. I mean, when I look back on my life, from the rocky post-college transition that ultimately led to my calling, what if my plans have worked out? Where would I be today? I don't know. It's not the story God had for me. He had a different one, and I'm rocking it out, and I'm loving the journey. So part of the joy, I think, comes from I was made that way. My Grammy says as a kid, I was an eternal optimist, just always kind of happy. But as I grew and came of age, have you seen the movie? What is it? It's got joy and sadness. Oh, upside down.
Yes.
Wait, inside out. Sorry.
Yes.
And ultimately, sadness saves the day. And so I think, Lexi, a long-winded way of answering your question is, I'm not always joyful. Like I hurt and I'm sad, and I feel a lot of weight of things. And I have found that those two work together very beautifully to keep propelling me forward.
Wow.
So when something is hurtful or painful, or you experience hard times, it makes you so appreciative of the good times. It's like right now, as we're talking, we're coming out of winter, and I mean, it's been freezing, and we've had monsoons of rain. As I'm talking to you right now, there is sun coming in the window, hitting my arm. And the warmth is just, it is so amazing. So you appreciate the warmth and the sunshine a lot more when you know what the dark, cold days are like. And that is a lot of the root of my light and my joy.
That is phenomenal. And I think that today's day and age, and maybe this is a part of your studies and maybe it's not, but I've just seen a group of people that have kind of taken up the offense and kind of played victim to things that life gives them. And I think that there's a victim mentality and then there's a victor mentality. And that makes all the difference in our quality of life, because you chose that this trial, this wrongdoing that someone did to you, instead of letting it write your story, you were like, I'm going to use this as part of the foundation to what makes me me. And that's beautiful. And it's a puzzle piece. It's not something that broke you. It's a part of the larger mosaic of what God's doing in your life. And so I just think that is so beautiful, and it's so inspiring and encouraging. And I just hope that anyone that, and I'm not saying to belittle the things that have hurt or caused pain, and to sit in those and to dwell in the right season, to dwell on those and to seek help or counseling for the things that people have been through. I'm not trying to say make less of it, but if we can make it a part of our story rather than the part of our story that breaks us, I think that is a beautiful change and brings a lot more people in the world like you. So thank you for using the things that have hurt you and the people that have hurt you to make you the strongest you. It's really, really encouraging and inspiring.
Well, thank you, Lexi. You know, as you said, man, life is bumpy, right? And it's like I sometimes think about the whack-a-mole, you know, that old game, and we're all going to get hit. We all have things. So I think you're so wise to say we've got to deal, we've got to hurt, we've got to heal. Use discernment of when is it time to kind of let this go, right, and go forward, to get support and wisdom around your journey. But ultimately, bitter and better, there's only one letter difference in what we choose. And I am always going to choose an E, always. And that's just a choice that I've made. And I would encourage us all to make that we do deal and heal from the hardships of life. And then we put on a smile, that red lipstick, whatever cute outfit you like, and you go forward and love this life that we're blessed to live.
Amen. And just that picture that you painted for us, that it was winter and now the sun is shining. It's like, hallelujah, praise God. Like that is just so, it's just such a reflection of who you are and how you bring joy into things, and you're looking for God in his fingerprints on your life, which is also something that I think in seasons where we are feeling the most filled is when we're seeing him the most. And I am constantly striving to, when I get in a rut, I look to like a gratitude journal. Like, what am I thankful for? Not because there's so many things we can always find to complain about, but it's what are we thankful for that changes our hearts and shapes us to be ready for the blessings. So how old were you when you started ReGenerations, and what has this journey looked like for you personally? Like, where has it shaped you, and how have you grown, and the lessons that you've learned?
Oh man, this is a great question. So this has been a 10-year story in the making. You know, as I mentioned, when I first had this nudging of like, whoa, okay, I think this is a thing. What is a thing? My mentor gets me the gift card. And, you know, it's one thing to start getting a cloodle, right, of like what you love. It's another to have the courage to actually live it out, share it, test it, try it, and step out for it. So it took me probably 2 years to figure out, what is this thing? Oh my gosh, it's Generations. This is a thing. And this was right about the time it was gaining popularity in America. And then, okay, what do I do with it? Then it was another few years trying to figure out, do I put together, at that point it was the PowerPoint. Do I put together this? And I'll slowly start sharing it with anyone who will listen. I mean, literally anyone. Lexi, I shared with anyone. And so each time I would get out in front of any group, I did MOPS groups. I'm not even a mom,
That's awesome.
Here's generationally how I think you could raise your kids. I did Rotary clubs, I did deacon boards, you name it. I was there and very available. And so each time I shared, I started getting feedback, and that feedback helped me improve it. And then I started feeling really called that I'm supposed to eventually do this full time. So I saved money for about 3 years to be able to afford a nice brand identity and a nice website, and to kind of invest in this thing that I was eventually going to launch. But it was always like, you're getting ready to run, I come out of the track world, and it's like, it's like that 0 step, right? You're like ready to go. But it's so scary to leave comfort, to leave a steady paycheck, to take this risk. And it took another just huge heartbreak and life disruption that really got me to a place of asking, wait, what am I doing? Like, I'm living this life by the playbook that everybody lives. I don't feel led to live this way, but I'm scared, and I remember looking back and saying, okay, when you look back at your life one day, Jessica Stollings, what do you want to look back and see? And it quickly hit me. I can deal, Lexi, with looking back one day and I tried this generational thing and it failed. I can deal with that. What I cannot deal with is not trying it. So through that hardship, I found courage in a very unlikely place and wrote a book and started sharing. In first year of business, you get paid, and I have so many mugs and T-shirts and cards. Like, that was a big lesson I learned quickly with travel. Just because you're traveling doesn't mean you're on vacation eating ice cream every day. So,
That's phenomenal.
First year you just kind of build and you go, and so I've learned so many lessons, and I have changed a ton in the process. Number one, like, when I get a lot of people who say, oh, I'm thinking about a business, should I try it? So, mostly the answer is usually no for people, because I've started building in a test when people want to meet and talk about this. And I was doing a lot of coffees, and I just realized they're not serious about this. And so I just ask, 3 questions and to see if we're going to even meet, just real simple questions. And, probably out of 10, maybe 1 out of 10 will actually answer the questions, because in my mind, I'm thinking, if you can't take time to do these questions, trust me, behind the scenes of a business, there will not be enough discipline to drive us through in the good and the bad days. So I've learned that it requires tons of discipline, but you have to really care about it, so I am so passionate about this, but one of the best lessons I've learned the hard way is that passion alone does not pay the bills. Can you believe that?
Amen.
So
I'm with you, sister.
Big bummer, right? So understanding how to set up your passion in very sustainable ways, and that's bringing the right people around you. I have what I call a personal and professional board of directors. These are people that I have invited into my life and into my business to sit closely with me, to help me see things. So I want a clear picture, not just the picture that I may want to see or that my bias may lend me to see. I want a lot of people looking at things, helping me through, talking through, offering their perspectives. So having those people around my table, and a good exercise for listeners that I did this years ago, it's how it helped me kind of figure out who my people are. But if you just had a table and you had 6 seats, and you want to invite 6 people to sit with you at your life table to figure out who are those people? What qualities do they have? Maybe you have similar values, but diverse perspectives. Maybe they're people who've shown you with time that they're trustworthy and that they have your best interests in mind. People that aren't just going to say what you want to hear because you want to hear it. People who are going to challenge you, but challenge you in love. And then likewise to flip it and say, wow, who would want to invite me to sit at their table? Am I someone worthy to be asked and invited to sit at someone's table? So I've just learned the humility of asking for help when I need it. And ultimately, I think, as an entrepreneur, and I'm a visionary, I have a lot in my head, a lot of things I could see, a lot of ideas. And so sometimes I'm just always kind of going, I got to go do this, without pausing to celebrate how far I've come, we've come, that this is something that we need to celebrate. So sometimes we can just be looking so much in next that we're not living and fully in the now. So don't focus so much on the outcomes, right? Like to go for something, but detach from it. It's really, I think, the journey where the joy is and where the treasures are, and it's where we learn.
Absolutely. And that kind of both points just lead me to my next set of questions, which one is that you're a total lady boss, and how do you balance self-care and being a go-getter? So you talk about the hard work that goes into it. You talk about that it's not always rainbows and butterflies, and oftentimes the joy is in the journey, but you do have to stop and celebrate. So how do you celebrate, and how do you do the self-care thing?
Oh, this is a great question, and one I'm very passionate about right now in this season of my life, because for a very long time I did not self-care, Lexi, and I have paid a real price for that. Last year was one of the best and bumpiest years of my life, 2018. My business was growing, had 54 speaking events, conducting primary research, selling my home, moving to a new city, managing. I have two little puggles. Here's a shout out for Bella and Millicent Stollings. They were both having like tremendous health issues. It was, I mean, I just am trying to balance a social life and going, like, I can do it. No, it was too much. And so about this time last year, I started having some really weird health issues. Like I would be out walking and I'd get really, really dizzy. And I'm thinking, okay, I was living in Chattanooga at the time, and must be the pollen. Then a few weeks later, I've never been a great sleeper. I don't sleep a ton, but I would be sleeping so much and I was so tired I could barely get out of bed. Then I'm like, okay, that was weird. I must be really just, going too hard, and I'll slow down. I had a kind of a time where I knew that I was on an unsustainable track. And so I'd built in a pause point in July of last year to kind of say, whoa, this train's going fast. Something needs to be done differently. But the way my health issues progressed, it stopped me before it got to that place. The next symptoms were, it was brain fog. I couldn't remember things, Lexi. I couldn't remember the names of people. I couldn't remember where I was supposed to be. I was giving a keynote to an executive team, and I was trying to connect my hands with my words. And so I was using a clicker to show a slide. And it wasn't changing. The slide wasn't changing. And so I remember thinking, wow, there must be something up with AV. So I looked back to the AV booth and kind of gave them a smile like, hey, this isn't working. And they looked at me and just mouthed, it's not us. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. Oh my gosh, there is something really wrong with me. And so I started a number of tests and was very blessed to quickly be diagnosed with chronic Lyme disease. So what that means is at some point, probably a tick bite or something. And when you get this issue, it can lie dormant in your system if your immune system is doing well. But with time, and particularly for me, the past 5 years, I've had relational, vocational, geographical change, a lot of change. And I've kind of just taken it on my shoulders, clenching down. And over time, my immune system just went down. And when you have something, maybe it's an autoimmune just so many people have health issues going on. My system just crashed. And so I spent 4 months of last year, 2 bed rest and 2 months of just really trying to regain my health. So I've been on a healing journey for quite a while. I'm doing incredibly well. But you talk about life lessons, the self-care, the boundary lines, the Jessica 2.0 way of living now looks very different to a girl you may have interviewed this time last year. So I am so thankful. Thank you, Lyme, for what you have taught me, because this is a lesson that is going to serve me well the rest of my life.
Wow, that is a wild story. And I know a few people with Lyme's disease, and it takes a toll. And so the fact that you're still going strong and you're still showing up. I mean, Jess, you've had a lot of trials in life and you do not let it take you down. And I am just so humbled just to be having this interview and just hearing these stories. And I know you don't tell them for the sake of like, well, please praise me and show me all the good things, but you truly feel the transformation, and you look for the lessons and you look for the wisdom that comes from these trials. And oh goodness, that is so incredible. And you're awesome.
And no, well, thank you. And the reason I share my life mission statement is to live fully, to learn deeply, and to share all I learned to help other people. And that's what I feel called to do. So if I may speak a few words about health, my friends, it's important. You have one life, one body. So many of the things that come on to us are stress induced. So many illnesses come from stress, come from poor lifestyle. What I found in my journey was mine was very much tied in with an unhealthy relationship with stress. Again, I was just taking it on rather than learning healthy ways to manage stress, because stress is not going to go away, right? If you're living, you're going to have stress. It's just part of being human. Now, how do we relate to it? So I would really encourage everyone to take really rock star care of yourself. Take care of your immune system. Eat well, eat foods that are good for your body. Make sleeping a priority. Set boundaries around that. Figure out what's good for your body. I go to infrared sauna every single week. I drink a gallon of water every day now. I get a massage once a month. It helps me. Think about meditation, mindfulness practices, talking out what you're feeling with your friends. There are a ton of techniques out there to draw upon and to utilize, but most importantly, to figure out what works well for you. As a part of walking out chronic illness, I have obviously connected with so many other beautiful, incredible men and women who have also experienced Lyme and other issues. And that empathy comes for me because I realize, before I would have been like, oh, come on, you got this, get up, go, put on your bootstraps and go, girlfriend. Well, no, some days you simply cannot get up, and that is okay. And that is a season where you need to ask for help and to be loved and to slow down and to be restored. But bottom line, every single one of us has something invisible, whether it be physical, emotional, spiritual, maybe it's a true limp that you walk with. But each one of us walks with a limp. So when we err in how we treat people, may we always err on the side of kindness.
Oh, you're so beautiful.
You're so beautiful too.
So this is a perfect segue into faith. Tell us a little bit about your faith. How has that shaped your business? How has that shaped who you are? And just pour it all out on us.
Yes, for sure. I am very, very blessed. My faith is the foundation of who I am. It is for me where all of these things that you're talking about kind of root out of. So love God and love others is just my jam. It's what I believe. It's how I try to live my life and to keep it pretty simple with that. So from a business perspective, it also definitely plays in. I love being a Christian businesswoman because you're able to take concepts that are really rooted in faith and scripture and be able to share those in meaningful ways. It also relieves a lot of the, in business, it's hard out there. It is really, really hard. Do you do this? Do that? Do this strategy? You pivot here? Who do you bring on your team? It's like behind the scenes, there's a lot going on. And so for me, faith is also like, I believe I'm called to this. And I think that's a different thing than I'm just, out doing this because I chose it. I believe, Lexi, I'm living out what God has called me to do. And so with that, there's a verse in 1 Thessalonians that said, the one who called you is faithful and he will do it. So I still try to be wise and I work my tail off, obviously, but I also trust that God's got this and there's a bigger story happening than I could ever pretend to strategize. So it helps keep life and work and everything in balance. And ultimately, because I have a tendency to be a striver, it has also called me to always continuously surrender. And when we surrender, surrender is much greater than strive.
Yes. Amen. And I am learning the same thing too, is like the similar verses, the one who has called you will bring it to completion type of promises that God has all over the Bible. And just you're so right in business and in ministry. For me with this podcast, it's just been a great reminder that I just have to show up. I have to pray and I have to invite the Holy Spirit in, and I have to work hard. I don't think that it exempts us from hard work. But what it does is it takes the pressure off of our shoulders, and He bears the burden with us. And that is the beauty of doing business, life, ministry, parenting, marriage, whatever, friendship, you name it, with God. He takes the burden and He shows us a way. And He doesn't say that it's going to be easy. He doesn't say that it's going to be safe. In fact, typically it's not either of those. But it is so worth it. And we're being refined and we're in training. Like I think of life as training camp for heaven. It's like we are just becoming the best earthly beings that we can, so that when we go to heaven, we are ready to honor and glorify God with our lives and our whole lives. And then we get the perfect body back, and we don't have health issues, and there's no pain and no suffering. And man, I love that on this side of heaven, sometimes we don't know why those trials are put in our place, but oftentimes we can look back on our life and see how pain points actually directed us to our purpose, which is just a beautiful thing, and is part of my story and how I ended up where I am with this podcast. And that's a story for another time. But as we are kind of bringing this to a close, I have just a few more questions. And one of them is, apart from ReGenerations and your passion for that, who do you feel called to serve? Is it a certain age group? Is it women? Is it creatives? And how do you serve them?
Oh, that's a wonderful question. You know, I always have a bent towards serving and seeing those who don't fit like a traditional mold or model, right? So like when I think about serving ages, I tilt towards, wow, the seniors, they often get left behind, wondering, do they still have a place and a role to play in their family and society? Are they needed? Do they matter? I tend to love all over the 20-somethings because they're in between. They feel like they're in between. Where do I fit? You know, I'm not quite feeling like I'm married and an adult, and I don't feel like I'm a teen. I feel really left out. So I have a tendency to gravitate in that way. Same for, I mean, entrepreneurs definitely fit into that model, like doing things a little bit differently. I love the specially abled community. So you talk about joy. I really enjoy serving and loving on our friends there. And finally, in kind of a personal passion point is I love women, and I love particularly speaking to women who I call it live on purpose. These are women who want to intentionally set out to live a great life, whether that means they're traveling the world or they're working in their own backyard, whether they're in a boardroom in a pencil skirt or they're home raising kids and empowering the next generation. Wherever they are in their walk and whatever their unique journey looks like, I am very passionate about speaking my little life lessons that I put out to just help us live on purpose, because life goes by quickly and each day that we have is a gift. And I just pray that we can empower and encourage people to live it well.
Amazing. And I love that you started with the senior community. Blake and I have friends that are an elderly married couple, and that was one very big takeaway that we had the last time we were with them, was just their feeling of not being relevant anymore, and their feeling that they were almost not needed. And that broke our hearts, because these people are legends, like in all that they've accomplished in life, in ministry, in parenting, in business, and for people to just stop and to think about those that they have in their life that are a little bit older. Sometimes even when I'm with my grandparents, I find myself talking so much about my own life and answering their questions that I forget to ask them stories about their childhood. And my grandfather just turned 80, and we got to ask him about different decades and what those decades had in store for him and what he loved about selling cars and certain things like that. And it is just so important to have those conversations and to love so well in that area. So thanks for that reminder. And lastly, I would love to know what you are most looking forward to in business in the months to come.
Oh my goodness. Oh, girl, I'm so excited about this. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
I'm thinking this is pretty cool. So last year, I told you we conducted some research partners. I was very, very fortunate to partner up with a great team of people, a company, to researchers, and an escape room. This rooted from an awesome client. I tell you, Lexi, I have the best clients. I mean, they are awesome and usually become my friends, which is such a blessing. But I had a client who we were doing a full day of training together, and they put together an escape room. Are you familiar with escape rooms?
Yes.
Yeah, kind of a popular trend right now. Well, what we noticed was really interesting when they brought in their this was an education group, and this was their leadership team. When the boomers went into the escape room, we noticed that they were at unrest. Because they were looking for clear guidelines or rules. We saw that as they would take things apart in the room, they would just as quickly put it right back in order. We watched a clear centralized leader emerge, and everyone followed him right down the wrong path without questioning, and they were stuck in the room. Next came Generation X, and these are the late 30 somethings up until early 50 somethings. And they're like, really, this is what we're doing with our day? There are so many different things we could be doing other than this. But wait, is this tied in with our bonus? And so kind of skeptical of the game. But once they got in the game, they were totally different, like game on. They were fantastic at problem solving, Lexi, but they weren't bringing what they found back to the collective group, and they were stuck. Finally came in the millennials. These are your late 20 something through kind of late 30 somethings. And they were so stoked for this team building activity. They were optimistic, not only that they would escape, but how quickly they would escape. They had a team hashtag and a real jovial spirit. In the room, they were comfortable in the ambiguity of the game. They took things apart, and the room looked like it had been kind of blown up. It looked chaotic, but they operated fine in it. They had a lot of good ideas, but ultimately were unable to kind of structure their escape the way that the game had been designed. And so they were stuck. As we debriefed on that experience in our training, we're like, whoa, that's really interesting. It would appear like the very things that held us back in each generational group could be an asset if we were to put together this rock star team. And so I started thinking about that, like, whoa, what would have happened if we would have put an intergenerational team in the room? Would they have escaped? And what would that tell us, whether they did or they didn't, about intergenerational connections and communication and problem solving as we sit in the middle of this massive generational shift? And so as I started looking for the research, and I searched and I searched and I couldn't find any. So through these partnerships, we went and conducted research last year, and we asked people, what do you think? Are we better together? It's I literally have better together flags. So I'm out literally waving this pennant, this flag, and thinking I should probably know, like, does this actually drive results? And so we asked people what they thought was part one of the research. And part two was we actually tested it. And through these partnerships, by creating a pop-up escape room, and we ran 15% of a company's workforce through it, same in intergenerational teams, and the results are fascinating. The results are coming out this late fall, which I'm very, very, very excited to share. But what I'm most excited about is what came out of this project. When we did the research, Lexi, found some real clear findings that quickly flipped into what I would consider to be a best-in-class training. And part of that was, how do we take the escape room experience? Because there's a lot of limitations as far as when you're looking to scale through an enterprise, both cost of escape room, time that you lose getting to a physical room, or and they're an hour game. So created a kind of a pop-up tabletop escape room game that we developed, tested. It went really well. So I'm launching for ReGenerations a new game that is coming out in 2 months, and we will be taking this out to training so that when we're talking about these generational differences and similarities, we'll actually learn a lot about it through an escape room game that can pop up at their table. It's a 15-minute game. The one that we tested just got voted one of the top 120 in the world for best-in-class training, and we saw that it moved behaviors and more positive views across generational lines at 68% behavior shift. So this tool, this game, is going to be pretty awesome. We were going to have an heiress, and you were in charge of finding, you've inherited this money, but you got to find it. And so you're going to go through this game and utilize technology throughout the different decades. So you may have to figure out how to use a rotary phone or how to use an Instagram account. You may be using Polaroid pictures and a pager. And at the end of it, the goal is to escape and open up the last lockbox to get to this family wealth. But you're going to learn a lot in the process, maybe even how to extract memories and knowledge from VHS tapes. And so I cannot wait for that to roll out as we as I seek to continuously look at how do we engage. Oh, and that's my dog Bella. She's really excited about
Hi,
this tool
Bella.
as well. She's going to be in my focus group. She says hi. So I cannot wait, Lexi, to share that with clients and to get that game out, because as we know, learning can and should be fun. And often it's through not only that when we think and then we're doing with this experience, but it's really the reflection of what did you learn and how can you apply that into your day-to-day relationships. That's where the rubber really meets the road.
Oh, so fun. I want to be a fly on the wall for all of this. And maybe, just maybe one day you'll need to hire an assistant to just carry your briefcase for you.
Oh my gosh, you're girl. I think I know of another speaker here, trainer. Have to stay in touch.
Oh
my
man,
friend.
I would love that. I mean, this kind of stuff, I not as much the ReGenerations part, because I haven't been exposed to it as much, but trainings and people connecting and people learning to love each other well and learning to come alongside one another. I mean, that kind of stuff fires me up. So I'm in. So thank you, Jess, so much for being on the show. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, your knowledge, your joy, your faith, your passions. Thank you for sharing your story, frankly. And I am just so encouraged by this message, and it kind of it stinks that it's Saturday because I'm supposed to be kind of resting and spending family time, but I'm like, oh gosh, I got all these ideas. I just got to put pen to paper, but I have to remember that you're a little bit ahead of me on the curve, and I don't need to put pressure on myself, but I am so encouraged and so inspired by you. And so I hope that all that are listening feel the same way.
Absolutely. Gosh, Lexi, thanks for who you are. Thanks for the difference that you make. Thanks for your smile and joy, intentionality. I mean, one of the greatest gifts James gave me was connecting me with you. And I wish you so much blessings and love and support in all of your adventures to come.
Thank you. And ladies, you are infinitely valuable. You are created with a unique set of gifts, skills, and talents created by God for His purpose and His glory. So go and be His hands and feet to this broken world. Get it, girl. If you loved this week's episode, please click to subscribe, share with a friend, or write a review. Or if you want brownie points, do all three. Thanks so much for tuning in. Have a great day.